Good morning, everyone. This is Royce Miller coming back at you with yet another chapter in my ongoing series, Propped Up. This week, I took a stop off of at at the small town of Good Springs and met a courier. We had some words, and I should say, parted ways with this. I won't say in what manner they parted ways with it. On a serious note, I actually here I had this thing of vampire blood from last Halloween when I did my penguin makeup, and I was going to get it all over my face to make it look like like I was Benny and I had just double tapped him or double tapped the courier twice. But then I'm like, no, I'm not really into bits. So sadly, you won't get to see me blood covered pretending to be a murderer. Which is good because I'm not one and I don't like to pretend to be one even. Anyway, this is the Platinum Chip from Fallout New Vegas. Now, I have a unique history with this particular item because I was one of the fortunate few who spent the $70 and got the collector's edition of Fallout New Vegas day one. Um, it's a. I also have a varied history with the video game itself. But anyway, we'll do my history with the chip first. Now, the funny thing is, I actually lost my original copy of the chip. So that came with the collector's edition. So, and this is this I bought off I believe Amazon or either Amazon or eBay, one of those two. And it was a lot of fun. It's a really nice prop because it's a center point or it's like a centerpiece to the game itself. A lot of calamity is revolves around this chip. It's almost like the Ring of Power, except only two factions really need it. Uh, Mr. House and Yes Man. Anyway, I should say my history with the video game. Now, I'm a bit of a Fallout fan, specifically of the modern era of Fallout. I know a lot of people prefer the original games. That's fine. I just can't do the grid combat. It does not mesh with my sensibilities at all, and it's so hard to get into. Like, I tried Fallout One once, and I couldn't get past the rats in the cave. That either that or I think I managed to run past them. I don't know. I think the best way to describe it is that I can't do something where all of your points are from the same pool. So, like, the same points you use to fire your weapon are the same points that you have to use to run away from combat. Uh, which means that if you decide that you don't want to fight an enemy, you have to reload a save if you're out of action points. If it has to be turn-based combat, I prefer the Pokemon, the retro Final Fantasy way of doing it, where you get a turn, your enemy gets a turn, and but I know that's not technically realistic, and I guess Fallout's combat style is more realistic, although it doesn't make sense that pulling a trigger is the same as running away. You know what I mean? I just prefer Bethesda's method of doing it, where action points AP are a separate bar from anything else, and you do use them to run in four, but that's beside the point. Anyway, uh, but so then Fallout 3 was my favorite game for a long time. Like, I loved that game to death. And I still do have very fond feelings for it. Um, I think the strongest point of the game are its two radio hosts. You have Eric Todd Dellums as Three Dog, who's kind of this Wolfman Jack-esque figure. And oh god, amazing voice. This is Three Dog. Ow! I think the only other things that most people would know him from is he plays Nazir in Skyrim, and he plays Ko, the Face Stealer, in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Which is funny considering that Ron Perlman, who is kind of famous for playing the narrator in Fallout, uh, plays Firelord Sozin. Anyway, and then of course you have Malcolm McDowell as the central antagonist and the other radio host, John Henry Eden, President of America, President of your heart. And Malcolm McDowell does this amazing FDR impression. Like, it's kind of that mid Atlantic thing where it's halfway between an American accent and a British accent. I believe that accent does exist in like certain parts of Canada, but it's not actually like a native language or a native dialect to to any real country. Well, okay, if it's native to Canada, but it's not native to America, is what I mean. Like the United States is what I mean. It's literally a voice that was made to talk on radio to help you enunciate. Because you can't have some like New Yorker or Chicagoan go on and like really mince their words and stuff. No, you train them to give them a speaking voice. Uh, I guess you could watch the King's Speech if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm not into that. I'm not into voice coaching outside of like, oh well, how do you do a Long Island accent? How do you do an Irish accent? Yada yada yada. Anyway, but while I do love Fallout 3 dearly, it does have its flaws. I think, it's a very small game. Like, the quests are so limited that you actually have individual, like, achievements for each of them. And, that's kind of funny to me just because, like, when your quests are like compared to Oblivion, which has a metric butt ton of quests, all really awesome, ranging from helping a paranoid guy spy on his neighbors to you know rescuing a count's idiot son from a literal hellscape. As, like, there's even a quest in Oblivion where you're helping a painter dude in his own painting, which is really funny. Anyway, but that's all beside the point. So back to this. I think New Vegas is a really good game, and if I'm being honest, better than Fallout 3. Uh, it has way more funny writing. Like, Fallout 3 went for a lot more of the darkly humorous game, or writing that was more in the first Fallout game, and then New Vegas kind of goes for more of the tongue in cheek, like over the top humor that was in 2. Not as over the top, like you do kind of become a pimp in New Vegas, but in Fallout 2, you could literally become a porn star. Uh, and they actually reference that in New Vegas, where um, one of the followers mentions a character by the name of Long Dick Johnson, which I believe is one of your uh, possible porn star names if you're a dude in Fallout 2. Anyway. So, New Vegas. I at first didn't like it as much as 3. I thought between the glitches and just the unfinished quality of the game that it wasn't that good, but yeah, I was in high school at the time. I was into the big things, like when Fallout, or like a couple of months, a month or two after Fallout New Vegas came out, they teased Skyrim. So that was probably where my head was, where, oh man, this thing's gonna be so epic and grand and stuff. Anyway, but the more I go back to it, the more I love New Vegas and think that it might be the best in the series. Um, I think Obsidian did a great job They were given a very limited timetable, and I think what they chose to focus on actually made the game stronger. Like, this is just my opinion, but okay, I need to say that the main villain faction in the game are slavers who pretend to be the Roman Legion, and they're called Caesar's Legion, or they call themselves Kaiser's Legion, which is technically accurate. Both Kaiser and Czar are like lingual descendants of the word Caesar, and uh, in Latin, C is pronounced as a hard K. So it is technically Caesar or Kaiser, whatever you want to, however you want to say it. But I prefer to say Caesar. That's just how it looks anglicized. Okay. Anyway, the main villain faction of the game isn't really that expanded upon, and I don't really think you need to expand upon them because they make sense and they're bastards. Like, they're slavers who base themselves off the first fascist state. And that is, yeah, that's enough. That's all you need for your villains. Like, the Master didn't have a grandiose thing. It's like, mutant better, human weak. The Enclave didn't have much either. They're basically Nazis. In both 2 and 3. And I know a lot of people compare like, oh well, three's just ripping off 1 and 2. No, Fallout 3 is a love letter to the first 2 games. It has its place in the hierarchy, okay? If you want to talk about bad Fallout games, Fallout Shelter is right there. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is right there. I've heard mixed reviews of Fallout Tactics. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I guess it depends on if you're an RTS person. I haven't played an RTS since like the first Halo Wars game. Ooh, that was a long time ago too. Anyway, back to this baby. And then of course you have Fallout. Oh, okay. Real quick, you also have Fallout 4, which is fine, but I hate the Radiant quest system. I prefer handmade quests that have actual writing behind them, not go here, do this, come back for a reward. It feels like Bethesda really phoned it in on that one. It feels like you're playing like an MMO, which is not how Bethesda games are supposed to work. Bethesda games are supposed to feel like a story that you were a part of. Anyway, back to the item at hand. Now, the platinum chip in the game is actually a microchip, or rather a like a floppy disk almost. It is a piece of technology that contains in it the codes and firmware update for the Securitrons that Mr. House uses, allowing them access to much higher grade weapons technology. Um, and he had it printed on a poker chip because he's like obsessed with Vegas. Even though he's not obsessed with the idea of Vegas, like a vice and sin. He just thinks the city is pretty and wants to be the ruler of it. But at least he's a smart man, so he's got that over Andrew Ryan, who's just an industrialist high on his own supply. Like, not even like, he didn't. Andrew Ryan didn't invent anything. He didn't invent plasmids. He just owns the patent. But that's Bioshock, different game. Back to this guy. And so the game opens with your character being robbed and shot in the head by a man in a checkered suit who sounds oddly like Chandler from Friends. And it and like the first third of the game is you tracking him down and getting this back. And then what you do afterwards is where the real meat of the game comes in. Uh, which is very interesting. Like, New Vegas is a very unique thing about it because a lot of it is Vegas based. Like, oh, you're killed by a mafioso, and, well, you're almost killed by a mafioso. You're buried in a shallow grave outside Vegas. And there is almost this hangover quality to it where you don't know what the F is happening. You're just trying to go with the flow and do what you can. And I also think that the Courier themselves is a very unique character in that everything that happens to them, you get the feeling that they're not all there. Like, obviously they took two. Uh, Apparently he takes that they take two to the skull, but like you only ever see the one. Apparently there is a second shot that goes off. Uh, and this and like I don't know. He's just. I think the. Uh, I think that the Courier is the most eccentric of the Fallout protagonists, especially since they because especially if you take the Wild Wasteland, uh, not perk trait. Anyway, now how do I feel about this prop? This is a very good prop. It's nice and weighty. It's real metal. Where's a metal thing I can tap this on? Um, but if I remember correctly, if I hold it too long, my hands will start to turn green, which is a problem that you run into with low quality metals. It's not like another prop I have where it's gold plated titanium, which we might get into a little later down the line, depending. Um, and like I don't know, I love that this was the trinket that came with the collector's edition, which one of the best collector's editions in the game. It had a making of DVD that was actually really fun. It had poker chips from each of the casinos. It had a deck of Fallout or of themed cards, like the backs were from each of the casinos, and then there was also and then like the characters on the front, each suit was a different like faction or group, and then the back also had to do with the character themselves usually. Like Mr. House would be on a Lucky 38 card. The Van Graffs would be on a Silver Rush card, yada yada. And I actually have that in my card thing back there. That is the one part of my collector's edition that survived all the moves, all the floods that I've been through. And I've actually been through more than one, unfortunately. Because you see, back when I lived in Iowa, I lived at the bottom of a hill. And when you live at the bottom of a hill and live in a basement, if your sump pump goes out, you're effed. And my sump pump went out a lot. So yeah, the box, the DVD, the poker chips, and the awesome graphic novel are all gone. And also the original platinum chip, but I was able to recover that using the miracle of retail, secondhand retail. That deck of cards is actually worth quite a bit too. Apparently, like the complete deck goes $90. Um, and which again, I bought the collector's edition for 70. I I say I bought it. It was a birthday gift from my mom. Actually, you know what? That reminds me of kind of a sad but kind story on her part. So she told me that I would have to wait until my dad picked us up for his weekend before I could play the game because they were divorced. It was 2010. And she and he forgot. He completely forgot. And when I called her and told her, I was so depressed because because you know, when your father forgets that this is his weekend to spend time with you, you kind of take it personally. And she said that I could play the game until he got there, which is she knows when to pull her punches and be kind. And it was, I pray that none of you ever have to go through that if you do still talk to your parents or, live with them or need to or have, visitations with them of any kind. Because it is a really bad feeling to like feel like your parents don't care about you. Well, I hate to end it on the sad note, but that's kind of all I got. Um, so yeah, you all have a good weekend. This is Royce Miller signing out.